Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing after, what was it on aggregate, Johnny? Rangers 6, Dortmund 4, I think. Off track in that second half. Whatever it was, a significant and monumental evening in Rangers history and a fantastic performance over the two legs. We're going to look back through the entire game. Just before I do that, a reminder that you can subscribe for 2 months over on the Rangers Review for just £1 at the moment. So top quality content every single day. Today we'll have lots of post-match analysis and the like for just £1. If you've ever thought about subscribing, why not do it just now? And subscribe on YouTube as well for whenever we go live. Right, Johnny, I don't really know where to start. I think we should start by just trying to sum up maybe the achievement of this victory, and then we'll get into the game by game. Certainly of my lifetime, I think that's the most significant Rangers European victory. Where does it rank in yours, and where do you rank that match over the two legs?
Well, it's so easy in mornings like this to get caught up in hyperbole, but for me, these three games that sort of match this or come close to matching this: Dynamo Kiev in the 80s, Parma in the late 90s, Leeds United in 1992. Those are the ones that come even remotely close. The thing is, they all came in a context of European football that was completely different, that wasn't so polarised, where Rangers, for example, under the Souness era, could go out and sign the England captain. So I think there is a strong argument in the context of where we are now that to put out a genuine European giant like Borussia Dortmund would stand as the greatest European result, certainly in my lifetime. And I'm 40. Now, people might disagree with that. I'd love to hear what people think in the comments. But the sheer difference in terms of the finances that both these clubs have, and I think the commentator just summed it up brilliantly at the end on BT Sport. I listened to it when I got in from the game last night, when he said, European football is set up for this not to happen now. Mm-hmm. And happen it did. And what an incredible night it was, Joshua. We hear people talking about Parma and certainly Kiev in terms of the atmosphere and Ibrox shaking to its foundations. Well, last night was the best atmosphere I've ever seen at Ibrox. Better than any Old Firm game. The place was absolutely electric. And especially, I think, see in the last 10 minutes, the fans really need to take a bow, because they really, that was 12th man stuff. And staying on for 10 minutes after the game, I think, just showed how big it was and how important it was. Mm-hmm. It was quite incredible.
Yeah, it was. I agree with you. I think the atmosphere was absolutely incredible throughout, really. We'll go through the game as it happened then. When the teams came out, I think there was a little bit of surprise that it was the same starting 11 that did the job in Dortmund, not because of the performance last week per se, but because those players might have been a bit tired and it was going to be a physical game. Dortmund changed up their approach somewhat. I've just been looking at the pass networks for the game, and they played with a lot more width, stretched Rangers around the park. What do you make of the kind of team lines, Johnny, the first few minutes taking us up to when James Tavernier starts the game with a goal from the penalty spot again?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Joshua, Dortmund are incredibly dangerous. So they looked like they could score. I wouldn't say Rangers were ever kind of in control of the game at any point, really. Certainly until not in the first half. But I think Rangers did well to kind of look very threatening on their own. And whenever Rangers went forward, they looked like they could cause serious problems. I'm saying to to you during the game, it was like a basketball match in a lot of ways. It was two teams that were extremely good going forward, but felt like the defensive structure could be absolutely got at throughout. But that was prevalent from the start. I mean, from the very get-go. I mean, Dortmund break forwards, hit the posts. I think come close again almost right away after that. Defensive mistakes, and there was a few defensive mistakes. I thought Connor Goldson. I don't want to stick the boot in on anyone on the morning of such a momentous result, but I don't think he had his best game for Rangers. There was obviously he was at fault and he was culpable for the Jude Bellingham goal, although he was unlucky, to be fair, just kind of the way the ball came off him. But he had a few moments where he was a bit shaky, I thought. But I suppose that's understandable when you've got players like Malin, who's worth a lot of money, and Bellingham, just what a player he's got. I mean, 18 years old. He reminds me of Wayne Rooney in a way, in that he's built like a man already. He's not many 18-year-olds who look like Jude Bellingham. It looks like he's 25. And I thought he was absolutely sensational. One of the best European performances from an away player that I've seen at Ibrox.
Yeah, when I agree with that, and the thing is, obviously speaks with maturity, but I think he, as you say, plays with a real maturity, and just really impressive from him throughout. Glad he was on the losing side, I think, but really impressive throughout. James Tavernier puts Rangers ahead from the penalty spot. At that point, you're 5-2 in aggregate. But it was after that goal that I thought Dortmund started to gain control, and I don't think it was a case of Rangers sitting back. I mean, we were sitting with a good view of Van Bronckhorst. He was constantly waving the team forwards, constantly kind of encouraging them to retain pressure. But Dortmund are really good, and I wrote my colour piece this morning that Rangers hadn't really changed approach, but Dortmund had. Marco Rose could have welcomed Munir back at right back as opposed to Akanji. That gave them a far more natural threat, and obviously Kent was trying to pressurise the centre back, so he was often open. There was often the ball into the final third. There was width on the left side as well, and Rangers were kind of getting stretched a lot. Maybe a man down on either flank, and Dortmund scored 2 goals in what felt like quick succession. And I mean, I don't know about you, Johnny, but I felt the halftime mood was, it's inevitable Dortmund score more, even after their second goal. And it was almost as if it was a kind of sliding of the scales back into, as you were saying, the commentator said that Rangers' victory last night, these things aren't supposed to happen in terms of the finances. Everything is geared towards these big clubs being so dominant. And in that period, you could really see, I think, the level of Dortmund, which shows how well Rangers did to kind of keep them quiet and control them for such large aspects of the 2 legs.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Dortmund, while they've clearly got serious issues defensively, I mean, Matt Hummels is not the player he was. Let's be honest. I mean, he was never the quickest. I thought Alfredo Morelos terrorised them over the 2 legs. There was very few balls that were fired into Morelos that he didn't win in terms of duels. I'll be really interested to see the stats on that, but it felt like whenever there was a ball clipped into Morelos to kind of hold up, Hummels just couldn't really get near him or was shrugged off. Morelos is obviously incredibly strong, and that's not probably the kind of striker that Hummels is used to dealing with. But I think I said last week he'd be counting Buffaloes in his sleep for the next few weeks, and well, I don't think last night changed that. While Morelos, didn't get the goal that he would always crave, he got a brilliant assist that was unfairly chalked off.
Halftime happens, and as I say, the mood is perhaps one of what happens now. Rangers have that really difficult balance to strike where, they're still going through. They're still, I think, at that point, what was it, 5-4 in aggregate. But as I said, it didn't feel like that. It felt the momentum was shifting towards Dortmund. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, as we asked him in the press conference after, had prepared for such a situation. One of 3, I guess you'd suggest, one of 3 variations to his game plan. Came out at halftime to a 5-3-2, which Rangers weren't as vulnerable to switches of play. It allowed them to keep Ryan Kent and Morelos high. You didn't have Kent having to track back the whole time. That is, it's easy to look at it in hindsight and say, that that's just what a manager should do, or that he should have prepared for such an outcome. But if that goes wrong, then there's a whole lot of criticism coming his way. So I think it's important to, pay homage to the coaching staff, because from our vantage point at the game, Johnny, it certainly felt like that switch at halftime kind of stunted Dortmund, but also allowed Rangers to go and use their best attacking weapons, which changed the course of the game, really, for me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It was a masterstroke. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it'll go down as one of the plus points of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's reign, because he looked at that tactically, changed it, and it absolutely worked. It freed up Bassey and Tavernier, who were both causing all sorts of problems getting forwards, and it isolated Ryan Kent on those two centre-backs who don't like quick, nimble, mobile players. Yeah. And he caused them all sorts of problems. So it was brilliant. I've got to have a word. I know I'm banging on about individuals. I could bang on about each and every individual. Bassey was absolutely outstanding on the left flank. But John Lundstrom, for me, he's the Johnny McFarlane man of the match. I thought he was an absolute colossus in both roles. So both at the sort of central midfield position, and when he got moved back into the sort of central sweeper role, he was incredible. And a lot of people have questioned him. I've kind of always said that I thought John Lundstrom had everything to be a Rangers hit, but it wasn't working. Well, I think it's working now. I think we can see what he's bringing to the table, and what he's bringing to the table has been outstanding. That's the highest level you can bring it, really. Against Dortmund in the Europa League in the last 32, you're talking about really, really top class performance there, and I thought he was absolutely magnificent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Calvin Bassey and Lundstrom both excellent, as you say, and just as the kind of defensive switch helped stop Dortmund, the attacking switch allowed Morelos and Kent to stay isolated on Dortmund. It was the wing backs that really regained control on either side, and it was those three players that would actually combine for the goal. James Tavernier, who we've not even really mentioned yet, and he was the player that scored a double, and I thought was absolutely fantastic throughout the occasion. Another big pressure penalty that he's put in the back of the net. John Lundstrom managed to keep play alive, played out to Tavernier, switch of play. Ball was worked into Ryan Jack, and Ryan Jack throughout both ties was really, really good at getting the ball in tight areas under pressure and switching play out to play over the Dortmund press and play into areas where they were kind of when they were running towards the ball. Finds Calvin Bassey, who seemed to have lost the ball in the first instance, but he does have this close control and kind of 1v1 ability that you see at points. He managed to, with an element of strength as well, get beyond his man, who I think was Julian Brandt, who over the course of the two ties really did not have a good game and had a lot of defensive. I think he was the one that gave away the penalty in the first half. And while we're at it, just quickly on the penalty in the first half, I know Barisic didn't have a great game, but it's his run for me that makes that penalty
100%.
The run, which is allows Kent to, I think, takes Meunier away. Bassey crosses, Hummels again, another player who didn't have a great two ties, misses it. I thought at that point that Morelos had just timed his run perfectly to kind of anticipate that mistake. The ball comes to James Tavernier at the back post and he finishes. It was a kind of throwback to the Galatasaray goal under Gerrard, the start of last season, Johnny, fullback to fullback. And further vindication of that tactical change at halftime. Fantastic ball, even if it was benefited from a mistake, and James Tavernier continues his fantastic season. A hat-trick over the two ties. He was magnificent last night, wasn't he?
A real captain's performance, not only stepping up under that pressure to crash home the penalty, not only a stunning finish, because that is not a difficult ball to hit. Anyone who's played football knows when you've got a cross coming in at velocity, at that height, to hit that properly and make sure that you hit the target, it's not easy. So add in the fact you've got 50,000 in the ground, the pressure, he's done a really terrific job there, getting not only hitting the target but hitting the net. But overall, Joshua, he was just magnificent, wasn't he? He drove the team forwards. He was constantly trying to get the ball down, trying to move the ball, knocking it past his man, trying to stretch the play. He just offered so much in that game, and I just thought he was absolutely terrific and just a great European night. Saw his interview after the game when I came home last night, and he just sort of said, "Yeah, 3 goals against Dortmund, can't kind of." And it was just almost like a sense of disbelief. But to have just got to the stage where that's not really a surprise anymore. I know the level of opposition maybe is, but you know what you're going to get from him, and he doesn't let you down. And that is if he gets a knock or if something's not gone right, you know that James Tavernier has the mentality to pick himself and go again. So he won't allow, or will very rarely allow, a dodgy performance to get to him. I thought he was magnificent, utterly magnificent last night. Another sort of heroic performance.
I asked Giovanni Van Bronckhorst about the move to that front two, and he said, in his words, he said that's what he thought changed the game because of the effect Rangers had in transition. By the time it goes 2-2 in the night, 6-4 in aggregate, Dortmund are throwing everything at the game. And some of the space they're leaving is, I think, questionable from their point of view. Gary Gray gets in touch to say that comment on Kent's performance, who obviously was excellent over the 2 ties. He had a goal chopped off that I think is, I mean, I've seen a lot of debate about it on social media because of the interpretation of the rule that obviously led to the goal being chopped off by VAR. So I'm interested to get your take on it, Johnny, if you have a better understanding than me, which I have no doubt you do. Nonetheless, it could have well been 4-2 in the night by that point because the space that Dortmund were leaving was just quite ridiculous by that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing for me about it was there was one angle that kind of showed you a really proper, I think, sense of the tackle in terms of the impact, and that angle didn't seem to be shown to the referee. That came across from the BT Sports pictures, but watching it live, Joshua, I know this is going to sound mad to anyone who was watching it on the TV. But when it seemed like there was dubiety, I thought perhaps Morelos had played Kent offside with the pass. It was nowhere near offside, but just in the moment, the idea that Morelos had fouled anyone in the build-up was just that was quite far down the list of potential issues with that phase of play. So I have to be honest and say I didn't think it was a foul. I mean, I don't know what the rule is you're referring to, Joshua.
I think the rule is that if the player, and I could be wrong because I was reading this very tired at about 2 a.m. But I think it was Emre Can. By the time his leg is kind of swinging in to make the kicking action, obviously he can't do anything about it. So if the player then kind of nips in to take the ball away at that point, then it's almost impeding with the action. Something along those lines. So I think that's why the goal was chopped off. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but the referee, we were right in front of, or right up ahead of the kind of VAR position, and the referee did maybe have 4 or 5 looks. He kind of took another glance as he went to walk away, so it was certainly dubious. Nonetheless, that would have been 7-4. Ryan Kent has another chance after that. By this point, Rangers really could have run away with it, couldn't they have?
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you talked about the space Dortmund were leaving. Rangers looked so dangerous on transitions. I mean, one of the things that I was kind of calling for in the game was I wanted to see Fashion Sakala brought on because I just thought his pace would have really, really tortured Dortmund. But I think, well, I'm not going to criticise Giovanni Van Bronckhorst tactically because I thought it was up there with the best Rangers managers' tactical performances of recent years, no doubt about it. But Scotty Arfield, who I thought had a bit of a dodgy first half, but came on to much more of a game in the second half, I thought could have switched out for Sakala and offered even more pace. But obviously not in the second half because it would have had to have been a change of shape there. There's no doubt about that. But you'd be slightly concerned about bringing Morelos off, given how well he played. And you certainly wouldn't want to bring Kent off because he was absolutely torturing the Dortmund backline whenever he got the ball. But But I thought Sakala could have potentially caused them problems. But ultimately, you can't complain with the job that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst did, which was magnificent.
And just finally on that kind of tactical element, there was a lot, we've spoken a lot about that this season. Obviously under Gerrard, there was a lot of talk about kind of variation within the system, and individual variation within the system, but there wasn't really that move away from the solid 4-3-3 structure, which brought a lot of success in Europe, but also at times started to, in my opinion, kind of that success somewhat in some games. And if Rangers had stuck to the guns at halftime last night, I don't think we're sitting here having a conversation with such a positive tint on it. So I think it shows the benefit of a manager, just as there's benefits to the type of manager that Gerrard is. I think the element of reactivity to the opposition that Van Bronckhorst does have is really beneficial. We might as well just quickly, Johnny, look ahead to Sunday's game, which seems worlds away now.
Yeah,
but, it'll be the last time we're on before that. Motherwell at home.
Joshua, before we do that, we've also got a draw. We've got a draw today.
Yeah, of course. Oh, it's going to be a busy day, isn't it? Who do you fancy then? Who do you fancy off the bat?
I think speaking to the guys last night, I think there was a lot of discussion about potentially West Ham. There's no easy teams. I mean, you wouldn't want Spartak Moscow.
No.
Given the current situation in the world. So, I think of the teams that can be drawn, West Ham, although that said, Galatasaray.
Yeah, that's who I said. Galatasaray. I mean, I was speaking to a friend.
Giving you a chance to get to the quarter-final.
Yeah, exactly. West Ham, I think, would be great fun. Nice, easy travel. I mean, if you've beaten the tournament favourites, I don't think you really should go and fear anyone. Galatasaray, I think, probably is maybe the most, as you say, tenable route through to the next stage. It's 11 o'clock, I think, British time, so we'll keep our eyes on that. And I think whatever happens, there'll be a lot of confidence because of that result last night. Ryan Jack said they knew they could, I think, win if they left everything on the pitch, and I'd imagine there'll be great belief within that dressing room that they can go and secure another couple of famous results, whoever they get. And Motherwell on Sunday, Johnny, I know it's a completely different game, as I was just saying, but vitally important. 3 points is an absolute must.
Yeah.
Probably some fresh legs in there. I mean, we've got the press conference later today, so we'll get an update on the fitness of Aaron Ramsey, see how far away he is. But you'd imagine Van Bronckhorst to maybe ring the changes for that game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to freshen it up a little bit. Ryan Jack talked last night about wanting to play every game, but having to be cognizant of the fact that someone might turn around and say to him, you've played a lot of football, and we need to be careful about how we're dealing with you. And I think that is the case. You can't ask Ryan Jack. It's not fair to ask Ryan Jack to play week in, week out, given the injury problems he's had. It's not wise, I don't think. Now, listen, there's a medical staff at Rangers who will know a lot more about this than me, and they'll be the ones that are driving that. But just from a common sense point of view, when you've got Stephen Davis there, who's not played a lot of games, you've got Glenn Kamara, who's a terrific player, I don't think you need to be going to the Ryan Jack well week in, week out, especially for Ibrox games. But I think Rangers can be really confident of going into that one against Motherwell and putting the pressure on Celtic, who've got to go to Livingston after a very poor result in terms of Bodo Glimt, who are a good team, by the way. But I think they've given Celtic a bit of a spanking over the two games, and the pressure is on because sorry, I'm talking rubbish. It's Dundee they're playing, or who's Celtic playing? Am I right in saying it's
I don't know. It's Livingston away soon. I know that, but
yeah. Sorry, I think I got myself mixed up there. But anyway, wherever Celtic are playing, I'll put the pressure on them.
Hibs they play. Gary Burke comes in.
Yeah, Hibs. Of course, it's Hibs. Yeah,
thank you, Gary.
It's not the easiest place to go, is at Easter Road. So that's important. That the pressure continues, and you've got to say, if Rangers can perform anywhere like how they've performed over these last 4 or 5 games, I know people will say Dundee United, but as I've said already on this broadcast, I just think Rangers were excellent in that game and very unlucky. But if they can keep the performance levels up, there's nothing to fear from anyone, Europe or domestic.
Absolutely. And we'll be there at the game, looking back on it on whatever day that is Monday. I think it's Friday today. Nonetheless, a fantastic result for Rangers in Europe. Do remember that you can subscribe to the Rangers Review. Today we'll have loads of analysis and colour piece looking back at the game yesterday. Just £1 for 2 months, so do go over and check it out, rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe, and see why we go on about it so much and see if you like it, and I'm sure you will. Subscribe on YouTube as well, so you can join us for our morning briefings and whenever else we go live, and we will be back on Monday morning after the game at home to Motherwell. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend.